All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to a Friday edition Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for listening to the show, watching, however you consume Talking Buffalo. I appreciate you very, very much. Today's sponsor, as always, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, just minutes down the way from Highmark Stadium. Great food, drinks, vibes, karaoke every other Saturday. That place pops on karaoke. I'm telling you, get up there. It's a great time. On the video side, we're recording this at around 9 p.m. and we're live. And I'm joined by my good buddy from Two in the Box, Chris Ostrander. What's going on, dude? How you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
Pretty good. It's been a long week. But
It has.
I mean, you're here in Western New York with me. In fact, you live in the South Towns with me as well. Beautiful weather. It has arrived.
I
It
finally got my
is.
Christmas lights down, man.
Are you joking?
Dude, I was ready to take it down like January 1st. My wife's like, we can't take them down yet because we had that like really nice day, like right after Christmas. And even my dad was giving me a hard time. I was like, all right, fine, we'll leave them up. And then it's been cold just the whole time. And I was like, I'm not going on the roof if it's like 20 degrees out. So here we are,
We
almost April.
that is funny, man.
Yeah.
At first I thought you were joking. You know what is? I'll tell you though. I have some lit up candy canes that were like, I don't know, maybe 18 inches long that were going along the edge of the driveway. Those just because they were under the snow and we didn't have green grass for what, like freaking 9 weeks out here in the South Town. So I finally got those
Yeah.
down yesterday. For everybody who's watching, and again on the video side, we're live. So if you happen to be watching, you want to leave a comment, drop it. I'll get it up on the show. Maybe we'll discuss it at some point as well. We're going to talk Buffalo Bills, of course. That's been the theme all week long. I'm going to get a lot of Chris's insight and reaction to a busy week for the Bills. I'm going to let everyone know up front because I care about all you listeners of Talking Buffalo. We are going to spend some time today talking Buffalo Sabres. We're going to talk Bills first. And when we're done talking Bills, we're going to get to the Sabres. Got to do it. This is, Chris, this is not a Bills podcast, but it pretty much is unofficially. You know what I mean? Because most of the talk is the Bills. I love talking about the Sabres, but it just makes people angry. And then it makes me angry. I feel like you are a much more level-headed person right now to be able to have some insight on the
I don't know.
Sabres. So
We'll
sorry
see.
to everyone out there in advance. If you're a Bills only fan, stick around for the first half of the show. And if you want to bounce, that's fine. But yeah, we're going to be talking Bills and Sabres today. Start with a quick little bit of actual news. The Bills did make one move late afternoon on Thursday. They signed wide receiver Laviska Shenault, a former second round pick. Tell you what, Chris, this is a kid who came into the league. I think it was 2020. He was a second round pick, and he was good his first 2 years with Jacksonville. He had 58 catches for 600 yards and 5 touchdowns as a rookie. And then he had 63 catches for a little over 600 yards in 2021. But that was it. Something happened. He just became a flop. He bounced around the last 3 years between Carolina and Seattle, and just I don't know what's going on. I don't really have a reaction to this signing. We talked for just a couple seconds before the show. This feels to me like a Chase Claypool type deal, an MBS type deal, a KJ Hamler type deal. These former high picks that really start out well but haven't done anything in a couple of years. The Bills just see no harm in giving him a look. I mean, I got no issue with it. You need bodies, but this is not the kind of pick where I have any expectation. Like I got an overreactionary buddy of mine who texted me, "Are you kidding me? How many shitty receivers are the Bills trying to sign?" I'm like, "Relax, man. All right, there's just a dude they're going to give a look to. You never know." But some quick thoughts on that, Chris.
Well, I actually had to look because when I saw the signing go through, I forget who tweeted it exactly, but it was wide receiver return specialists, and I had to double check that Brandon Condriton was still on the team. I was like, wait, I missed something here, and that Condriton got cut or something like that, or he was a free agent. I was like, what the hell's going on here? But luckily, I was I was just caught off guard by it. But I think you're right. It's I've been trying to like balance some of these signs, like Darrington Evans. I'm like, oh, okay, like these guys are going to be like kind of bodies in mini camp and training camp, and
Sure.
if they pop, they pop. But I have a feeling we're going to we'll probably see a lot of this guy in the third and fourth quarter of the final preseason game.
Yeah,
If I had to guess,
Darrington Evans, I think, has been on this team 19 times now.
yeah,
That's last year.
yeah,
But yeah, look, he's a body. He's familiar with the system. I'm not criticizing. I'm not laughing. I'm not making fun of the Chenault signing today. This is just one of those. You hear the term all the time: low risk, no risk, high reward, whatever you want to call it. I don't know about high reward, but this is like a no risk or a low risk signing. What do you got to lose? Give him
yeah.
a look. I don't know that there's any real expectations. I will say this though. Props to my guy, Greg Thompson over at Cover One, because he did point this out. The NFL's trying to get more kickoffs this year because they're making the touchback to 35. They're talking about making a touchback. We'll find out soon. Potentially the 35-yard line instead of the 30. They're encouraging more kicks and getting more kickoff returns. And I'll say this because my first thought, in fact, I put it out there on Twitter as well. I was like, did I miss something? Did Brandon Condritan get cut? He didn't. He got hurt. They kind of pulled him off kickoffs though near the end of last year. And then when he was healthy in the playoffs, they just decided to go with experience, and they had Khalil Shakir out there returning punts instead of him, even though Condritan was good to go. He had hurt his hamstring, I believe, and then Ty Johnson was returning the kicks. So if you have if you are a Chenault guy and you think that maybe you could catch lightning in a bottle here, he has returned kicks before, and they're looking to make kick returns a thing again, which I don't never understand the NFL. Like, you want to eliminate this, you want to eliminate that, and now you want to have more kick returns, which probably leads to more injuries. I don't even know what's going on with this league anymore. And it's like they change their minds every year about how they want
Yeah.
to function.
It's like the new kickoff rules didn't go the way they thought it was going to, in immediately forcing more returns because everyone's just kicking out of the end zone.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy to kick it out of the end zone, and yeah, so I mean they can move to the 35, and I mean maybe that'll finally change teams' minds, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I would be fine if they just went back to the old kickoff too, and I mean if they just moved the kickback 5 yards, would they not accomplish the same thing? Would that not get you more returns versus playing around with where the touchback goes and landing zones and all that? I don't know.
I'm
I don't know.
Personally, I'm pro
Lose
kickoff,
lose.
Chris. I'm pro kickoff. I think it could be an exciting part of the game. By the way, quick shout out to Big Papa Bill, Chooch, two regulars who are in the chat all the time when I go live. They're here tonight, so I wanted to make sure I shouted those two guys out. What are your overall thoughts? Let's kind of get beyond Laviska Chenault. He's just a guy. We'll see. Hey, maybe a pleasant surprise. I'd love to be proven wrong. Maybe he is more than KJ Hamler or Chase Claypool. Maybe he will be in the mix. I think it's going to be a very tough path for him to make this team if there's not injuries. But anyway, overall right now, so we're what? This is day 4 of free agency. The Bills have been very busy throughout this process. Not just signing new guys, but they also, did a lot of in-house work in the days before free agency. They extended Terrell Bernard, they extended Khalil Shakir, they extended Greg Rizzo, they gave Josh Allen the big contract that sooner or later we knew was coming. And then, like I said, they got busy on Monday. They've signed like 6 guys and maybe 7 now if you count Chenault. What do you make right now? What is your general impressions right now about Bills free agency? Like what have you liked the most so far, and maybe something that you haven't liked so far, at least?
I'm really interested in how they've gone about strengthening or reinforcing, I probably should say, the defensive line. And it's something you and I talked about a whole bunch the last couple times I've been on. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, Hoyt's height, right? Not I know it's not Heshed, but Michael Hoyt seems like he might be a player. People, everyone's talking him up right now, so we'll see what he brings to the table. And I know Bosa's a little bit long in the tooth these days, but they strengthen the edge, and they retain Rousseau, which is fine. I could have gone either way on keeping him. I know again something else we talked about, but
Yeah.
they committed some attention to the D line, which they certainly needed to do. I certainly don't think that they've gotten the flash player that they need to have a difference maker, and I wouldn't say I'm worried, but I wonder how much more room they have within that group to add someone. Are they going to use a first round pick? Are they going to trade up even potentially to try to get a guy who can flash at D tackle or D end after making all these moves? I'd have some questions about that, but they looked at their positions of need and they've tried to address them. I think Josh Palmer's going to be interesting though. I'm a little bit excited to
Me
see what
too.
they do with him.
Yeah.
If they start throwing the ball downfield a little bit more with him, that'd be cool. I might end up eating my words because I feel like when they, every time they've signed someone who's a deep threat, like I think of like Hardy a couple years ago, they
Mm.
use him on like bubble screens. They don't stretch the field with these guys. So hopefully they use him the way that that maximizes his talent.
Yeah, I was big on the Palmer signing because he was one of my guys, like, that I had before free
Mm,
agency started. The rest of them, not that I have an issue with any of them, but they just weren't guys that I saw coming, especially obviously Joey Bosa. Definitely surprising and kind of out of nowhere. It seems that's, when the Bills sign somebody big now, or when they do something that's big, it's like we could have a show. You and I could do a show, I feel like, for 50 days in a row, and we could probably make 10 predictions each day for 50 days, and we'll never get right what the Buffalo Bills end up doing when it comes to these big moves. Like in 2020, who the hell saw, a trade for Stephon Diggs coming? Which, by the way, I'll never forget that because I was actually live doing his podcast with Greg Thompson from Cover One, and that trade happened. Like right now, you and I are talking, and just to be safe, I got TweetDeck open. It's on a monitor to the right, just in case something wild, a little nutty happens. But I was literally in the middle of a podcast with Greg Thompson. It was a Monday night when the Stephon Diggs trade came down, and we just couldn't. It was hard to compose ourselves because it was just so shocking.
hmm
Fast forward to 2022, I don't think anybody foresaw the Bills signing Vaughn Miller, and they did.
Right.
6 years, a buck 20, even if essentially it was like 3 for 60, 65 at the end of the day. But still, nobody saw that shit coming, man. That was wild. And now these free agency previews that I've done here on Talking Buffalo with a bunch of guests, you, Matt Warren, we've all talked about a bunch of guys that we liked or that would be possibilities. I can't recall any person on this show mentioning Joey Bosa once, including myself. I know that I did it, and I didn't really hear him on other Bills content shows around there on Twitter and stuff like that. So it was just a huge, genuine surprise. Did you hear his, by the way, I don't know, I know you were working today. Did you get a chance to listen to any of his presser today on today being Thursday?
I didn't, unfortunately. No, I saw some of the some of the clips. Like I saw the one that's got clipped a lot of. Josh Allen texted him saying like, we'll be immortal in Buffalo if we win a championship.
He's not
So
wrong, by the way.
no, definitely not. No, I think yeah, if Bills or Sabres, if you bring a championship here, you're getting a statue. So
Oh, 100%.
yeah, no question. So like, but I didn't get a chance to watch much more of it. So I mean, the thing with Bosa though, to me too though, like they didn't sign him to a massive contract.
Mm-mm.
It's very mid tier in terms of the money outlay, and I think that's like makes it more palatable. You're not
Sure.
paying them 40 million bucks, you're not paying them 30 or whatever. I remember we talked right after the Super Bowl about like Josh Sweat and like was he maybe a $12 million guy before he went and showed out at the Super Bowl. So like, giving Bosa 12 million bucks is fine I mean, and if he can do what Von Miller did that first year Miller was here, before he got hurt, knock on wood, but like that could be a big win for them.
Yeah,
If
for
if
sure.
he can flash, then that's great. We'll see what he can do, but
If somebody wants to be critical of the signing, like saying, "Hey, this player just hurt too much. He's washed up. I don't think he's going to be anything for this team. He's going to end up on IR after 4 weeks, and it's going to end up being a waste of money." Things like that. If you want to have that attitude, I could get with that. I don't have no problem with the contract. I think it's the right price for the right type of player at that price and the right term to get him to come to Buffalo. I have no issues whatsoever with the contract. I'm concerned about the player. I asked you about the press conference today because, and this is no criticism of Joe Bosa whatsoever. I want to be really clear with that. I am not criticizing him. I'm just saying he sounds very business-like. Like that was my takeaway. Like he sounded very business-like. Like some of the guys like Josh Palmer, Michael Hoyt, especially that new safety from Washington. Hell, the name's escaping me right now. The new safety from Washington. It'll pop in my head in just a second here. Anyway, you could just
We're
He
talking
could
about Derek
feel
Forrest, right?
yeah, Derek
Yeah.
Forrest.
Okay.
Who, by the way, I should remember his name because I'm gonna tell you right now, that could be we'll talk about him in a few minutes. That could be a big sleeper pick.
Mm,
I've talked to a couple of Washington people, and they were pretty high on this kid. Like, this kid has a pretty high ceiling. It would not shock me at all to see him do some good things in Buffalo. But anyway, back to Bosa. It almost feels like he's a hired gun. Like, you gave me this money. I'm a hired gun. I'm here to do a job. Not that he's got an issue with Buffalo. Like, he talked about this. He kept saying Buffalo culture, football town. He played at Ohio State. He said it's the same thing. That's like football is religion, pretty much. He didn't say that, but that's what he's insinuating here in Buffalo. I'm not saying he's not happy to be here, so don't take it that way. It feels very business-like right now. Like I'm getting paid like a hitman. He's a
yeah.
mercenary. I'm paid to do a job. This is what I'm going to do. He says, I'll be the starter. He expects to be the starter and he'll do whatever the team asks. This could be a situation. The reason why I think it could be a real good fit, Chris, and I still don't love the signing. I'm just going to be honest with you. I wanted Josh Sweat, or Hassan Reddick. There were a handful of other guys I preferred. But I will say this, part of the reason why I think this is potentially a good fit with Buffalo, let me know if you agree with this. The way Sean McDermott, I usually hate his rotation. Like, Greg Rousseau should be out there more than he is. Ed Oliver should be out there more than he is. That rotation, that 8-man rotation is a lot. I mean, these guys get on and off the field a lot. In the case of Bosa, that may be a good thing, right? He's not
Yeah.
going to play a lot, especially early in the season.
Yeah. As long as they don't use him as situationally as they did with like Von Miller.
Right.
And Miller definitely, especially after he got dinged up, like you could really tell he was out of gas. He just didn't have it anymore. And every once in a while he might have flashed, but to me, he just didn't look like the player that you needed him to be. Yet it seemed like every single third down,
Mm-hmm.
he's on the field, right? And so that made it tough for me watching. Like, I'm like, oh, Miller's out there again, like. And usually he's bumping Rousseau over to get on the field, and it just didn't seem to jive with me. So, yeah, like with respect to Bosa, if they can keep him fresh, and even if it's an earlier thing where maybe you get through for 6-8 weeks, and he's able to keep him off the field a little bit, so that he's got a little gas in the tank for the stretch run, then that's great. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to look at his stat line and see what he's done from just a pure production standpoint, and feel super duper confident that, like you said, with his quote, even like that he can be a quote unquote starter, which I think is maybe a little dubious depending on what he is at this point in his career.
I'm glad you brought up Von Miller too, because that was really puzzling to me last year. I had no issue with his lack of snaps. I was like, load management, fine. Ramp him up come playoff time. That's why you have a Von Miller. And then come playoff time, he plays 17 snaps against the Ravens and 16 snaps against the Chiefs, like 25%. That's not good enough. I sure as hell hope that that's not going to be the plan going forward with Joe Bosa. Another thing that he pointed out, which I mean was obvious, but I'm glad that Joe pointed it out himself too, was he said he played at like 60, 70% for a lot of the season last year, and he felt healthier near the end, and then his best football was in the playoffs, which it was. I mean, I didn't watch the game, or I did watch the game. I wasn't studying Joe Bosa. He had 6 pressures and a sack against Houston in the playoffs, so he was kind of a beast in that football game. I said, all in all, I like the signing. I don't love it, but I appreciate Brandon Beane realizing that, hey, we got to go get some guys. Michael Hoyt, which is funny because at first you said Hex, because that, like Jochen Hex, that was kind of like my first instinct too. But the first time I heard Hoyt, I was like, I'm never going to forget this, because I grew up 2 streets on the west side away from Hoyt. So I was like, Hoyt Street. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to forget Michael Hoyt.
Yeah.
But by the way, I'm going to listen to it myself tomorrow. Cover One already snagged his ass up, those son of a bitches. Eric Turner and Anthony Prohaska, they have him on their Cover One film. In fact, that's dropped somewhere on YouTube on Thursday. I'm going to check that out. From what I hear, Michael Hoyt is like incredibly, and I mean incredibly excited about being a Buffalo Bill.
Well,
Right,
he's not Brampton, right? That's Josh Palmer. He's an Ontario kid
he's
too,
close.
though, right?
He's close.
Yeah.
Yeah, they grew up close together, so they're both close to home.
Yeah.
And then the other side, Larry Oben Gobble. Oben Gill. Oh my God. It's gonna take me half the season to get his name. I see it in front of me, and I always pronounce it right. And then the second is not in front of me, I pronounce it wrong. But look, they have to upgrade the defensive tackle depth because I'll tell you, Dwayne Carter last year, rookie. I know he's a rookie, but he was really disappointing behind Ed Oliver. And I almost feel like this is an indictment to some extent on him that they don't have confidence in him taking the next step. So it's like, you better go get yourself a veteran that you can rely on. I originally thought it was going to be a one tech and kind of take over for DaQuan Jones, but it's not really the case at all. But yeah, just generally speaking, look, they got 9 defensive linemen right now under contract, all who are pretty notable. If they add anyone else to the draft, which we think they are, someone could be in trouble. It could be DaQuan Jones, although he's their only one true tech on this team right now. But a guy you and I have talked about, do you think under the radar, low key, AJ Epinesa could be in trouble potentially right now?
Ooh, I didn't thought about that at all, but you're probably right.
Yeah,
In retrospect, because what's your DN rotation? Your edge rotations, yeah, Rousseau, Hoyt, Miller, Miller. Oh my God, Bosa. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, like all of a sudden, you're getting down the list before you get to Epinesa, and he's got a pretty hefty paycheck, I think,
sure.
to be down that far in your rotation. And if, depending on how much they like Javon Solomon, maybe if they want him to get more opportunity, like, yeah, Epinesa could definitely be the odd man out there for sure.
Yeah, Larry Agunjabi. I'm going to say it every day on this podcast until it's second nature to me.
You got to put it like on the
Disrespectful.
wall of your bathroom. You brush your teeth and say it every morning.
Funny thing is, he's done a lot of good things in the NFL. He was the Walter Payton Man of the Year last year for the Pittsburgh Steelers, too. So he's a high
Yeah.
character guy. I think he's going to be a good fit for the Buffalo Bills. And at some point, I'll be able to consistently get his name right. How embarrassing. But anyway, before we get to a break and switch gears and talk Sabres, second half of this show, just the offense, Chris, right now. So they add Josh Palmer. They lose Matt Collins. Amari Cooper's out there. It certainly does not seem like Amari Cooper is going to be back. Again, they just signed Chenault today. I don't think they're looking to pay any real money for a receiver. Maybe they pick one up in the draft or so. They re-signed Ty Johnson. Looks like they're running back this offense from last year, basically, but insert Palmer, take out Matt Collins and Cooper for the time being. How do you feel about that right now? There's some people out there who really wanted to see them make a push and go get a potential, like, quote unquote, like an alpha male, number one, a Devontae Adams type, maybe trade for a Chris Olave or somebody like that, like a really solid, proven veteran. But it doesn't seem like they're going that route. Like, Josh Palmer fits a need that they have within their offense, and they're ready to run it back. An historically good offense, too, I should add, last year with the NFL MVP at quarterback right now. But how are you feeling about what their approach has been to the offense, at least through this point anyway?
I think it's light, honestly. I appreciate what Brady and has done, and like kind of how they scheme it, where there's not necessarily that you know bell cow at receiver where you're going to feed 40% of your targets to one guy or 60% of your targets to one guy, whatever. I would have been totally on board for DK Metcalf. I think that would have been a really, like, ballsy
Sure.
move. I don't know how I would have felt about some of the other targets. Like, I kind of wonder about Adams if he's kind of running out of steam here. So I would have. I'm happy to let someone else go, conduct that experiment. But Metcalf, I think, would have been a pretty nasty addition to this offense.
He would.
So yeah, so too bad that they weren't able to get on that one, but it just might not line up with their philosophy. The one thing I wonder though is whether or not they re-sign Cooper. I don't know if he really is a key cog for them if they were to re-sign him right now. But they had some struggles early in the season. There were a couple games there where the everybody eats mentality was really applauded and a lot of good coverage on it. And then, they had that little hiccup early on, and then they went and traded for Amari Cooper. So, without plugging that hole on the outside, and just by my arithmetic, you got Coleman, you got Palmer, you've got Shakir, and then you've got a hole where Cooper would have been. If you assume that Palmer's kind of backfilling for Matt Collins, not maybe not a one for one, but generally. It just strikes me that they're a weapon short in the receiver core, and I mean, do they do they think Dalton Kincaid's going to have a bounce back year? I mean, is that what they're hoping for? I that's a bit of a gamble to me. I don't know if I can get fully behind that one. To
Yep.
be honest with you, so yeah, I wonder if they're I suppose there's still time for them to try to find somebody, but looking at it right now, it strikes me that they're a weapon shy at wideout.
There's lots of time, like to your point. There's lots of time. There's still some pretty good receivers out there in free agency. There's always trade possibilities. There's high in the draft possibilities. There might be some June 1st cuts
Mm,
in the summer. There's definitely possibilities. But you know what? I think this is at this point, based on what they've done, re-signing Ty Johnson, letting Matt Collins and Cooper, well, seemingly Cooper walk and signing Josh Palmer. I think at the end of the day, you kind of mentioned this. I think so. If you're saying, all right, they're a historically good offense last year, but how do you keep that sustainable? How do you maintain that this year? I think the number one answer is whether they could go sign Cooper Cup tomorrow. They're not. I'm just saying they could, and that might move the needle a little bit. But for me, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with this, I think this is their philosophy. Their plan for this offense to be sustainable is for two big things: Keon Coleman to step up in year two, and Dalton Kincaid to step up slash bounce back in year three. He was pretty solid as a rookie. Not so much last year. Injured a lot last year. He was injured more than a lot of people know last season. Keon Coleman played pretty well, got hurt, and was a shell of himself when he came back from that injury. I think the Bills are counting mightily this season on big steps from Keon Coleman and from Dalton Kincaid. And in the case of Keon Coleman, Chris, right now, I think that's kind of evident by the fact that they're not making a big splash type move
mhm.
at wide receiver. I feel like if they were making a big splash type move, that would show you that maybe we're not as confident in Keon. But it shows me that they're confident in him and they're counting on him. They're banking on him, whatever terminology you want to use right now. That's going to be the way the offense remains, efficient and successful. Are those guys taking a big step? I mean, they are their first two picks over the last 2 years, right?
That's right. No, no, absolutely. And I know someone even in the comments mentioned like Bean talking about drafting, drafting and developing. So that would fall right in line with that philosophy.
Yeah.
I did kind of wonder, like, is it possible that they were maybe running out the clock on Cup? They didn't want to trade for him. Maybe they think they can get him on a decent free agent contract now that he's
Mhm.
been released. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't. Yeah, I just I have my doubts about. And maybe it's because the Sabres have now scarred me, but I have some doubts about relying solely on the progress of your draft picks.
Yeah. Joe had a comment that said, is it me or can anyone see Samuel getting moved for a team with a 2026 unfree agent or I'm sorry, unrestricted free agent corner, maybe a Cleveland Brown, Emerson plus we have a mid draft pick, then draft a Royals or Respect Pro. No, Curtis Samuel, I'm assuming that's who he's talking about there is Curtis Samuel. No, they're short receivers right now as it is. Curtis Samuel is your solid number four right now, or maybe your number three.
I forgot all
And
about him.
Samuel, yeah, and Samuel, Samuel Palmer, whichever way you want to look at it, they need another receiver. So I don't think they're going to trade one. He does bring up a good point though about the cornerback. That's the one thing the Bills have not touched yet. In fact, they traded Kyler Elam, which was a great trade. They got something. They moved up 34 picks from the from 6 to 5. So I counted. It was 34 slots they move up. And more importantly, they shed $2.5 million of cap space for a guy that was probably not making this football team. And if they would have cut him and didn't trade him, they would have had to eat like $4.5 million.
Mhm.
That was a low-key brilliant move by Brandon Beane. I like Kyrie Elam as a person. He says all the right things. He was very classy in a tweet to Bills Mafia after he just got traded yesterday. I root for him. I hope for the best. Maybe he could turn around a change of scenery, but he was legitimately awful with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, that Kansas City game was his chance to show, hey, let Russell Douglas walk. I can handle this. Benford gets hurt, and he just got blowtorched by the Kansas City
Yeah.
offense. It just didn't look like he belonged out there. all the best to him. But anyway, my point was, Chris, that's the one thing that kind of surprises you right now because that's the one thing the team has not touched. At least as we're recording this, cornerback. Like, who in God's name is going to be the cornerback next year alongside Benford?
I mean, it strikes me. It starts to make me think that they're going to pick one high,
Yeah,
and
agreed.
maybe D tackle's not the choice at 30. Maybe it's corner. Uh,
Could be.
and whether they stay at 30, if moving up or down, whatever, that first pick, wherever they end up landing, uh, it maybe going to be a corner over anything else.
I think so as well. However, I do still expect them to make a move before the draft at corner. Brandon
Right.
Beane loves, and smartly so, he loves to have starters set and be able to draft not necessarily for need. And right now, corner is in need. He kind of got pigeonholed 3 years ago when he needed a corner, and the Chiefs jumped him and took McDuffie, and he kind of panicked, and he had to take Kyrie Elam after that, which obviously didn't work out. So I don't know if it's Russell Douglas coming back. Sante Samuel Jr. is a name we're hearing a lot about. Although he was visiting, so I think he was out visiting Arizona. I thought I saw a report. He's out there. Kendall Fuller. There's a couple out there. They're going to make a move. I just don't know who it is.
Mhm.
At this point, I'd be good with bringing Russell Douglas back for another year. Let him play, get that rookie in there. And whenever that rookie's better than Russell, whether it's week 1, the end of the season, or not at all, but he's still developed and ready to go after that, that's what I would do. One last Bills question. Then we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to have to switch gears here and hit the Sabres. So the Bills did re-sign Ty Johnson. That was kind of a mystery. I thought it should be a no-brainer. I'm very, very happy they did. I think he's a very useful and underrated player, and Josh Allen absolutely loves him. The question I got for you is, do you think this has any effect on James Cook? Because we're talking about running the offense back from last year. You had all 3 running backs back. I don't think you changed that formula. James Cook ain't going from a 45% to 75% snap guy with Ty Johnson on this football team, nor should he, because Ty Johnson is a much better pass blocker and does some other things very well. And plus, you got Ray Davis going in the year too. So I kind of feel like the role remains the same for James Cook. He wants money. Do you foresee a problem with him now that we know what the running back situation is going to be with Ty Johnson back? Is that something that concerns you? Or do you think ultimately he just goes out, he plays, and then whatever happens after this year happens?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if I could say well enough how I perceive Cook's attitude about this sort of thing. I know he's had a few, whether Instagram comments and
Mhm.
social media things like that. So, does he? I guess just does he look at the running back market from the last few years and say, you've got to make your money while you can before you get run, your legs get run out.
Right.
So in that, with that in mind, yeah, I could see, does he maybe threaten a holdout or anything like that, something like that. But from the pure dynamic of the room, I don't think anything's going to change. I mean, I love Davis and I love Johnson. I think they're both really great backs. Um, I mean, and there's times that Davis specifically when he's in the game, I'm like, man, I feel like he's a tougher runner than even Cook is sometimes.
Sure.
Just the way he carries himself. So in terms of the dynamic, no, I doubt anything would change there. But yeah, I guess the big unknown is how does Cook view this from a salary perspective, and all of the other big guys got their money, Bernard, um, Bernard Rousseau, blanked on Rousseau there for a second, but
Yeah.
Bernard Rousseau and
Here.
Shakir all getting their money, and Cook's the odd man out right now. So
Yeah.
it very well may just be a negotiation, and they're just still they're just grinding at it. But if he hasn't really started any sort of negotiations, maybe he is looking at this now and be like, well, man, I'm the only one who didn't get a raise. What the hell's going on here? So
I think if we bring this up, we'll have an answer after the draft. If the Bills take a running back somewhere between rounds 2 to 4, somewhere like around that range, maybe a 5th, something like that. Some might be up. That might be Brandon Beane saying, I'm preparing for this to
mhm,
be a problem. Ultimately, though, I really don't think it's going to be. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I think ultimately the Bills come up with some way to give him a bump, a salary bump this year. He's around 5. Get him up to 8 for this year. Tell him we're not going to tag you after this year, too. So play at 8 this year and go see what the market is next year if we don't, extend you ourselves. That keeps everybody happy and motivated. There's a lot of people saying just trade James Cook right now, and that actually pisses me off, to be honest with you. Trade him for what, a third, a fourth, and you got a rookie who may not be anything.
Yeah.
I mean, James Cook is your best player on offense whose name is not Josh Allen, and you're trying to win a Super Bowl. You know, go all in, and you want to go get Bosa and other defensive linemen and probably maybe another move to come and these high draft picks and stuff. You want to be like an all-in mode, and then you want to trade James Cook for a rookie running back or let Ray Davis be a feature back, which I like Ray Davis, just like you said, but I don't like him as much as I like James Cook.
Yeah.
James Cook's a better all-around back right now. So absolute nonsense. You ain't trading James Cook unless you get something really, really good, or unless it becomes a huge problem, which guess what? Despite an Instagram emoji or shit like that, it's not a problem like that. Not right now anyway. Anyway, all right, let's take a quick break, come back, and the video side will be literally right back. And getting in a bad mood just in time. Talk Buffalo Sabres coming up right after this. And I am back here with Chris Ostrander from Two in the Box. James Cook trade talk triggers me, man. I don't. Why would you want to trade? It would be, forget about the contract stuff. I'm talking about from him being on the field. It would almost be like saying, let's trade Khalil Shakir for a day 2 pick. Why would you do that? Why would you not have Khalil Shakir on the field?
Right.
He's giving you the better chance to win right now. James Cook gives you the best chance to win. Just hogwash to me right now. That pisses me off. I'd rather him leave for nothing after this year and get a comp pick the year after that than go get a mid-round pick right now and go draft a rookie who may or may not be anything close to what James Cook is. All right. Warning, like I said, Bills fans, thank you for sticking around. Hopefully some of you are Sabres fans or just Sabres fans who've been patiently waiting to hit up this team right now. 56 points. They are 6 points clear of the bottom of the Eastern Conference right now. They're 30th in the NHL. They've lost 7 of their last 8 after winning 6 of their prior 7. Just when we started getting a little bit of hope, I heard Jeremy White on WGR after they won 6 of 7, talking about these point stretches and getting these increments, and then they go lose 7 of 8. They're 4-15-2 in their last 21 road games. Chris, if you're not, how do I say this right? If you're not a fan, if you're not a Sabres fan right now, okay, or if you're a new Sabres fan, let me put it that way. If you're a new Sabres fan, you're new to this team for whatever reason, or you're not one, and you're just casually observing, how do you justify Kevyn Adams keeping his job beyond this season, which is his 5th season as general manager? This team is a train wreck. They're disgraceful. They're a laughing stock, I feel like, around the league. Former players, some probably do have an axe to grind against them, others maybe not, but it's ridiculous right now. And I can't see a world where you could convince me, and you would know it's a lot better than me. You're so much more plugged in than the Sabres than I ever will be. But how can you convince me that Terry Pegula truly cares about this organization and winning first and foremost? And then in the same token, you keep a general manager who's completing his 5th year, and you are literally the worst team in your entire conference, and you're the 3rd from the bottom in the entire NHL right now. How's that happen?
I mean, boy,
Sorry, it's a loaded question.
it's so hard for me to give any rope to Pagula as owner of the Sabres right now, because, like, no question, like, Kevyn Adams does not deserve to keep his job after this. This season has been an unmitigated embarrassment at almost every turn. You know, I tweeted about it today. Like, you go back to June, July, and he's talking about, he's like, this has got to be a win now season. The time is now, yada yada yada. And then there's no change in the offseason. They start the season flat. Like, Lindy Ruff gets hired, and he's like, they used him as a mascot for 3 weeks. I felt like, he was like a PR hire.
Absolutely.
They got him announcing the draft pick at the draft. They've got him, they got a bobblehead packet going out for tickets with at $22. Like, just silliness. And then they start the season flat. They picked it up a bit, and then you hit that 13-game losing streak. smack in that middle of that losing streak is Adams, that disaster class of a press conference. And now 2 months go by with relative quiet around the team, just kind of ups and downs as you'd have during the year. But now the deadline comes, they make a notable trade, no question. Like that, like they made a big trade, but the entire narrative around them post deadline is more people just firing. It's a firing squad. You know, the entire narrative is how bad things are here, how no players want to play here. The captain wants out again. He had a meeting with the GM, and so like all of that, and they're third last in the league. Which is insane. And I mean, right now I'm watching the standings. I'm like, can Nashville win a few more games here to really lock the Sabres in at 30th? Because the top of this draft there are 4 really good players in this draft. If the only potential way forward with this draft, at least with their draft pick, if they don't trade it, which I don't think they will, because they have to spend money, is to get one of the high draft picks. So like hopefully it's Michael Misa, maybe it's Porter Martone. Either way, we can talk about that another time. But all of that, you put all that together, you combine it with the fact that they have not been, and I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. I apologize. I should have pulled it up because I wrote about it earlier in the year, but they have not been top. They have not been in the top half of league spending more than I think 4 times in the last 10 years. And again, my numbers might be a little bit off here, so forgive me, give me a little bit of leeway here. But like they've been a bottom 5, bottom 10 spending team since COVID for sure. I think the only time they weren't a bottom 5 spending team in the last 5 years would have been that Taylor Hall year when they signed Hall and Stahl was brought in, and of course that year didn't go well. That was the end of the Eichel era.
Mhm.
And so you can't tell me that the owner continues to refuse to spend on the team, that they have a rinky-dink coaching staff,
I was going to ask
and
you about that next.
well, yeah, and then on top of all of it, the GM is they've regressed in every way. Lance Lasowski was on with Jeff Merrick this week. He had a great segment, and he talked about how like they've regressed in every manner under Ruff. And so this year 5, as you said, Pat, with the GM, nothing's gone right. It's been worse than it's been the last 2 years. They've regressed the last 2 years since that 1 point fallen 1 point shy in 22-23, and there is no indication, as far as I can tell, that Kevyn Adams is going anywhere.
How can you possibly sell a fan base if you're Terry Bagula, or I don't give a shit who it is, somebody in the marketing department, whatever, whoever Terry Bagula hires to get people to want to buy season tickets or buy game tickets or buy jerseys, merchandise, whatever the hell it may be? How do you possibly keep a fan base engaged and successfully sell them on bringing Kevyn Adams back for a 6th season? What has his team shown that makes you say, well, you know what? We're close. Give him another year and things are going to turn around. I just can't fathom it. I just don't. There's
I got
nothing.
nothing, honestly. Like they have two of the most dynamic talents in the league in Tage Thompson and Dahlin, and they're gonna finish in the bottom 3 of the league. It's nuts. It's just so nuts to me. And the one thing, and I don't want to steal this from Lance, but Lance brought up a really good point on his segment where he said the only thing that may change things at this point are those season ticket renewals. If season tickets is going out, I think the message, I want to say it's the 16th. I think it's this weekend. It's like if you put your deposit in by the 16th, I'm not a season ticket holder, so I'm going off of like what I've seen
Right,
from other
right, right.
people. But it's like if you put in by the 16th, we're not going to raise your prices. And now I'm sure that that's going to be a sliding scale, because let's say I am a season ticket holder and I call bullshit. I'm like, yeah, no, we'll see. I don't believe you. And I decide on
Yeah.
April 30th that I want to re up. I think I might be able to get that deal. I
Confident.
just guessing. But if the season ticket renewals go to hell on them, then maybe Pagula's like, oh man, like we can't move forward like this. I know I said it to you, someone recently. It was like, maybe if they're bottom 5 team and they're an embarrassment, Pagula's got to
They
raise
are an
them.
embarrassment.
And they are, right, no question. But like by all, like everything I've seen, and again, like, I don't have like really great sources or anything like that, so I don't know what Pagula's thinking on this, but like every indication that I'm picking up just from like reading tea leaves, seeing reporting, it sounds to me like Adams is going back. And I just think it's nuts at this point. Like he's done some good, like I will say, like in vacuums, I'm like, that Cousins trade is fine. The Ryan McLeod trade was a really good acquisition. Like he does some things where I'm like, I like that. That was a smart move generally. And then the team can't do it. And it's I've talked about this on my podcast. There is this just pervasive illness within the organization, and it just completely destroys any sort of culture and identity that they have. And I just don't know how they fix it because honestly, like, and I feel bad because like I know a lot of people over there, and they got a lot of great people who work there, and I mean I can't imagine how hard it is to go into the office every day knowing how bad this team is, but like somewhere they gotta find a way to flick a switch where every single person, from the security guy at the front door
Hmm.
to Terry Pagula, you've got to be pulling in the same direction, and I just don't know. Like I don't know what's going on. Like they got to sage the locker room or something because like the players don't seem all that motivated and nothing they do works. It's insane to me that like they haven't fallen ass backwards into this thing at this point. Like it's astonishing how bad it's gotten.
It feels to me, and there's a lot of shit wrong with this organization, but it feels to me organizationally and individually that no one can handle prosperity. It's like, how do I say this the right way? Like Mateus Samuelson looks promising, and then he gets a big contract way too early. And what happens? He sucks now. He sucks. People are begging for the Sabres to buy him out, including me. It's not even so much his hockey prowess as just his unwillingness to stick up for teammates. And we really don't get into that. You know exactly what I'm
Hmm.
talking about. If you're a Sabres fan, you watch the freaking games, you know. Dylan Cousins, big monster contract, so promising, get some prosperity, gets the shit kicked out of him in a fight. I'm not laughing because that's not funny, but it's the truth. And he was never the same player again. He gets a big contract. He sucks. Now UPL last year looked like, man, this guy is a guy who could carry your team. Let's get better players around. Let's get a better fourth line. Special teams will be better. He's going to be able to carry the team. He gets a 5-year contract. Boom. Into the tank this year. There's just so many players that are like that. Like they win games. They creep up when there's no expectation and no one really gives a shit. They will put 6 to 7 together. Then you start buzzing and get a little bit of prosperity going with this team. Run the goddamn tank again. Lose 7 of 8 or whatever. It's like the first sign of something good happening to them, some prosperity. It just goes right back into the shitter with this team. They don't know how to handle any kind of, I don't know, promise, success. No, it sounds stupid, but I truly feel that way. It's like every time the eyes are on them, that's when they're at their worst. That game in Detroit, what we're taping this Thursday, Wednesday,
Yeah,
that was that was embarrassing. I mean, come on, man. That was just an embarrassing effort, embarrassing coaching. And for people who don't know, you're talking about these assistant coaches. I want to make sure I got this right. So they hire Lindy Ruff, right? But he doesn't get to pick his coaching staff.
yep.
They pretty much, the guys that they had were his coaching staff. And I saw some numbers of just how inexperienced and how bad these guys were before that. And I don't know them, so I'm not going to sit there and act like I know. But this power play is anemic. Special teams is pathetic. The goaltending is badly regressed this year from last year. Coaching does play a role in this, right beyond just Lindy Ruff.
Yeah, for sure, no question. And you know, they yeah, Kevyn Adams served up this coaching staff to Ruff. They got Ruff to take the job. They said, okay, you're going to have Seth Appert is going to be assistant number one. He's going to run the offense and the power play, yada yada yada. We're going to keep Marty Wilford around, and I think they liked what Wilford did the last couple of years. I think they were pretty happy with some of the things that they saw from their defense core. Um, could that be because Rasmus Dahlin is an all-world talent? I'm not sure. But they kept Wilford around. Fine, so be it. Appert, head coach of the Amerks, they liked what he did. Whatever. They moved Matt Ellis upstairs, so he's in the press box. So you got him off the power play, right? Matt Ellis doesn't have to touch the power play. They couldn't figure that thing out last year, and lo and
Mhm.
behold, it's still the same issue. And Appert's power plays in Rochester weren't great anyway. So in hindsight, not a great move, of course, but and then when it comes to the goaltending coach, Mike Bales, he's been here for a few years too. And so the one thing I will say for Bales is that the strengths in UPL's game that showed last year, you got to let him wear that too. So a bit of a balancing act, but still at the core issue is that you fired your head coach and you brought in a new coach and you didn't let him bring any assistants with him. That is unheard of. That's just nuts. Like imagine firing Sean McDermott and or let's just go back. Like let's imagine, they fire Rex Ryan and they hire Sean McDermott. They're like, but you've got to keep all of Rex's assistants. You can't bring a single guy with you.
Right.
That's insane. And obviously NFL assistants, there's 900 of them, but like still, like that's just nuts. And so now, and now everyone's regressing everywhere except for 5-on-5. Like the one thing that they're good at is at even strength, which is good because the majority of the game is played there. But the things on the fringes, the things that get you over the top and into the playoffs, having a good power play, being able to kill penalties above a 20% rate, like these things that they've not been able to do now for a couple years, the spotlight should be firmly on really the entire coaching staff, because I don't think Ruff has accomplished anything that they expected him to set out to do either. So I don't think he can be absolved of any of this either. But it is, and again, this is another reason to can Kevyn Adams, quite frankly, because again, this is Adams' staff. Seth Appert, again, this is kind of hearsay, but like from what I understand, they kind of brought Appert in like he was going to be the coach in waiting. That he's gonna learn under Lindy at the NHL level because they only gave Ruff 2 years, and if all goes well, Appert will take over right from him. And now I can't, like, how do you bring any of these guys back? And I think they will, because I don't think Pagula wants to spend a lot of money on this team right now.
Well, you mentioned 5-on-5 and talk about Tage Thompson, how good he's been this year. He's only scored 5 power play goals. He got 34 goals. He's 4th in the NHL right now in scoring, despite only 5 of those coming on the power play because, again, it's anemic. And I was also, I forgot about him. Shame on me. I was running off some players who have some early success and promise, little prosperity, then they go right into the tank. What about Jack Quinn? I could throw him on that list too. A couple years ago, he looks great. Right now, it's a victory if he could go a whole shift without falling once. He looks like Happy Gilmore during tryouts, just ankle bending and can barely even stay on his skates right now at this point. We talk about pissing fans off. A couple more things. I'm going to let you go. How checked out? So again, you are much more plugged into the Sabres, into the hockey community, way more than I am. You cover the team. You write about the team. You podcast. You're on social media all the time. You have relationships with a lot of the media people and a lot of the fans. How checked out are fans right now? Like, this has been going on for a long time, the losing. But right now, how checked out are fans? Yeah, everybody's either angry or they're checked out. I'm getting close to checked out. I'm obviously freaking angry, but how checked out are a lot of Sabres fans right now? It's become, when I go on Twitter, it feels like a running joke when they play and lose.
Yeah, I think you have the call them diehards or what have you, but you have people who are going to watch them no matter what. And I'll tune in almost every night. Now, will I make plans and be like, oh, there is a Sabres game tonight? That'll happen. But generally speaking, I think you have a group of like diehard sickos who are going to watch no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you have like a group of people the next level up who are going to slowly filter out. The way I'm going by it is when you watch these games and you watch the home games and you see how empty the arena is. I was surprised at how few fans were at the Oilers game with McDavid in town.
Mm-hmm.
I've been surprised at some of the other home dates they've had where it's been an advantageous start time or some other related, not promotions. They don't do that many promotions anyway, but like, just other things where you'd be like, oh, I would have thought this would have been a better showing. And there's just seas and seas of empty seats. I think that's the biggest tell that people are checked out. Just no one cares to go to the arena. Maybe they'll tune in, who knows? But the other thing I can, like, just to paint a picture for you, like, I do not have an overly successful podcast. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not top 10 in the charts by any means, but
they don't love you in Egypt like they love this show in Egypt.
I think I got a few downloads from Portugal last week.
Egypt and the Cayman Islands, and I think actually Canada a couple of times. They love talking about all those countries, but I'll go ahead.
Yeah, no, Turkey. We're big in Turkey.
They love you in Turkey.
Yeah, there you go. Like when we were like really kicking and the Sabres were at least like relatively competent,
Mhm.
and this even is like not that long, like maybe even 5, 6 years, like right around pre-COVID, Eichel's still around. There's still some hope that they can get things together. Like I would over a week or maybe a 2 week span, depending on how like the stagger worked out. Like I might get like 700 downloads on an episode,
Mhm.
maybe flirt with 1,000 within like 2 or 3 weeks, like on a single episode.
Sure.
Right now, I'm probably gonna get like 350 to 400 on an episode.
Yeah.
And again, like I know the score. I know I'm not a top like people aren't gonna
Yeah,
always
but
seek
you
my
see the
content out.
difference though.
Right.
Whether you're
Yes.
bigger or smaller, you're seeing the
Yeah.
difference and that shows you that fans are slowly but surely just completely checking out. They don't
Right.
want to use it's
Exactly.
nothing against you or your product. It's that
Right.
just don't want to waste their time
Exactly.
hearing what you're talking about with the
Mhm.
team.
Yeah, they just
I
don't care. Yeah, it's just like, oh, the Sabres, who cares? And so, like, and again, I don't know the exact like. I'd have to like really like look at the old at my numbers, but like, if I'm like 50% drop in my little tiny corner of the Sabres internet, like, God knows what it looks like at the box office, right? So
Sure.
like, that's something else like that I've noticed just anecdotally too. It's just like, man, like. I don't think anyone cares right now. And I don't blame them. Like, they don't deserve your respect, they
Yeah.
don't deserve your interest, and that's terrifying because, like, if it gets any worse, like, you are gonna start hearing people talk about the viability of them in the market.
Mhm.
I think it's crazy to say, but Winnipeg is a smaller market. They have even more trouble getting the corporate dollars that make the world go round, and you know, last year in the fall, there was a lot of talk about Winnipeg and their struggles and just how viable things were going to be. And they're
Yeah.
one of the top 3 teams or top 5 teams in the NHL this year. The Sabres have been in the bottom 5 for a decade. And like, how much more, like it's either Terry's going to open the checkbook up or he's going to put a for sale sign out front. Like
Yeah.
it's scary to think about because it's such a storied franchise. But like, it's bleak, man. It's bleak. You caught me at a bad time too. Like I'm at my wit's end with some of this stuff too. Like it's bad.
I feel genuinely awful for Rasmus Dahlin, who's, just continuing to have to go through shit. And by the way, I mean, everybody knows about the alleged words that were said. It was reported, what was it? What's the name of that
Spitting
podcast?
chicklets, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That Dahlin told Adams behind closed doors, get this shit fixed quick or I want out. Rasmus denied it publicly. And look, maybe he didn't say that, but for everybody out there, it was just instantly Mike Harrington. I saw everyone was attacking that podcast. And in this case, maybe it's warranted. But let me tell you something right now. And I know this, and I'm not even a hockey guy. But I'm talking about with football and other sports. I know athletes and other sports. What people tell you when there's a camera in your face and a microphone in your mouth and a phone that's recorded in front of your mouth, what people say in public and what actually does happen behind the scenes are not one and the same. A lot of those athletes who are telling you, I never said that, or no issues, there's no issues. There are issues. They're just not going to tell you
Mhm.
that publicly. Like, if Rasmus Dahlin did tell Kevyn Adams that, it wouldn't surprise me, and I wouldn't blame him either. I feel terrible for him. I feel awful for Tage Thompson, who's playing his ass off again this year. These guys are superstars, man. They should be celebrated so much more than they are. And look, fans know it. Hey, Rasmus is a great player. Tage is a great player, but who gives a shit? Because the freaking team sucks and nobody cares about the team. They're not celebrated nearly at all the way they are. Let me ask you one last question too. Would this be the ultimate punch in the face? Could this be the last straw with the Sabres? Let's just say the season ends and nothing changes. They finish dead last right now in the Eastern Conference, which they sure as hell seem like they're headed towards. They finished third from the bottom, so 30th in the NHL, dead last in the East. Not only does Kevyn Adams stay, but also Lindy Ruff steps down and they do name Seth Appert to become the next head coach. Is that going to be the exodus of fans, like the ones that are semi checked out right now? Is it going to be pretty much full on check out if if Lindy just steps down, he says, whatever, they have a mutual part in the ways publicly. But at the end of the day, Seth Alpert becomes the next head coach and Kevyn Adams stays. Is that the final straw for the majority of Sabres fans?
I would go one step beyond it. I would say coaching, maybe. I don't know about the coaching end of it. It's possible. I think what would be more triggering from a fan base perspective is as it goes, as you just said, they finish last, third last, whatever. They're picking third or second or whatever it ends up being. But not only do they retain Kevyn Adams and there aren't any meaningful coaching staff changes, but they retain Kevyn Adams, and more importantly, he keeps this roster the same. Like, does he view the Josh Norris trade as what was necessary to change the locker room dynamic and to start to reshape, or I shouldn't say to start to simply reshape his core, and that he is content with the group that they have. They've extended Zucker and Greenway. Maybe Jack Quinn with another offseason can get healthier and he can return to form. I don't know, but maybe that's along the lines of his thinking. And he goes into the summer not expecting to need any more significant additions. I think that would be complete insanity. But the potential for them to effectively run back this roster with maybe some small, maybe Devin Levi's the backup, or they have a different backup, whatever. Maybe they find another defenseman in free agency. But generally speaking, this roster runs back. I think that would probably set off the final alarm bells within the fan base. And we'll see how it goes down, because I think that's nuts. But I'm not I'm not jumping to any more conclusions with this group, just because
Sure.
they find a new bottom every time I think they're at rock bottom. So
I don't, and the
yeah.
funny thing is I'm not sure they've even gotten to the bottom all the way yet, because I could see a scenario. If you want to talk about real bottoms, they keep Adams, or they make Apper coach, or they don't do anything to the roster, all the above, who knows, whatever. And they go through one or two more seasons like this. Fans, that attendance just dips so bad, rightfully so. People stop coming to games, people stop buying tickets to merch. The future of Buffalo, the Sabres, could be in jeopardy at that
Yeah.
point. There could come a day. It ain't now. I'm just telling you, if people stop going to the games, maybe there's no Buffalo Sabres down the road. I'll tell you, because fans can only take so much shit. And the ones who aren't checked out are definitely angry. I notice it all the time on social media. I don't know how much you notice it. Chad DeMinicis, you guys are likable alternative media folk. You're one of us. You're one of them with the fans. I really don't think that they F with you too much, fans. I notice when it comes to the mainstream people, like since fans can't get to Terry Bagula or Kevyn Adams or Lindy Ruff, they want to save their vitriol, their anger for the media folk.
Mm-hmm.
And I see every day people, Lance Lazowski, going back and forth with fans, and it just gets snippier and snippier every day. Mike Harrington, of course, although the Sabres could be 82-0, and Michael might still be going at it with some fans. I respect Mike. He does a great job. He holds, players and coaches accountable better than most. But anyway, he's just getting shittier and shittier, and those exchanges with fans are just getting worse and worse with him. We all know people go at Paul Hamilton all the time. I'm just saying the fans they got to have somebody to get their anger at. And it just seems now it's like, well, fuck it. If I can't get to the players, I'm going to go after the media.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't really experienced that, though, have you?
No, not really. And I have such a small share of the voice.
But a lot of people like and respect you, too.
Yeah.
Just like Chad. So, I mean, it's a different, you guys are different media.
True. Yes. And I've gotten to the point with Twitter the last, I don't know, handful of years where I'm like, I don't play the game as much anymore.
Right.
So there'll be times where I'm like, I guess I can make a comment about I don't know, Owen Power, let's say. And it would invite more replies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily play that game as much anymore, because honestly, I just don't have the interest and the energy for it, because again, you get all comers, and you get, whether it be Joe Buffalo wins or some guy with Mike, and he's got 15 numbers at the end of his name. And, like, you just get whether it's a guy or it's some stranger, like, sometimes it's just not worth the I'm not here to get in a fight anymore. Like, I used to shit post all the time. It's just not my bag anymore. So, like, I also kind of stay on the outskirts of those conversations at times. I try to, I share my piece. I try to give some insight and, and just contribute to the conversation. But generally, I try to avoid that, and luckily, like, I don't have too many, if anyone, who like hawks me on negative opinions and things like that. And maybe it's just because at this point now we're like, even as optimistic as I try to keep things, like, I'm still like, man, this sucks. And so just people are like, yeah, no, I agree. And so and so it's not too much anger, but I do notice though, like, when when a tweet gets picked up on the For You page, because that's when it's like, I've never heard from this guy ever in my life, and you got
Right.
15 replies to a tweet instead of 5 or whatever, and it's more and more anger or vitriol as a result.
I think maybe I need to lay on your couch and let you be my psychiatrist or something when it comes to that, because I'm guilty of it. I admit it. I still like to slog in the mud with fans, and there's just no winning when it comes to that shit. There's just none, and I know it. And I'm an easy mark, and I think people know that. I used to have a little cousin that I knew I could get under his skin, and I like to see his temper tantrums and his reactions. So I would provoke him on purpose just because I knew he was going to take the bait. That's kind of how I am now. It's coming back on me, though. I think there's a lot of fans out there that'll trigger me or say something on purpose to know that I'm just going to get going instead of just like you said, not really getting involved in the comments and the conversations. I fall for it every time. But this team fucking pisses me off, especially the Sabres. I'm definitely an easy mark with the
Yeah,
Sabres. And
well,
I
yeah.
feel like the only people right now, the only people left who truly will dig in and still defend the Sabres right now are the people who I just described a few minutes ago. The people where, you know what? Oh my God, nobody's coming to this game anymore. We're going to lose this team. They're going to end up, Terry Pegula is going to sell this team and they're going to leave Buffalo. I better go to the games. I better buy their jerseys because they're going to leave Buffalo if I don't. I feel like at this point, at least right now, those are the only like real true fans that are even left right now. Like you're operating out of a place of fear. Now, look, if they turn things around, fans are going to come flocking back. I will. I'm a bandwagon hopper. I'm all right with being that. But I just feel like there's a lot of fans right now that if they're really true loyal, not all, but a lot that are just, hey, at least I got a team to root for. The Hartford, there is no Hartford Whalers. People in Hartford don't have a team to root for. So I'm just glad that we have a team in Buffalo. I think it's bullshit. I think there's a lot of people out there that are like that.
I think it'll be interesting if we reach that point or we start to that critical mass starts to build. you know, it, I think conversations are going to start to have to be had of like, I
Mhm.
even think back to like the depths of the Bills drought, where and they had we had our fair share of blackouts, right? But like at some level, there were still people going to those games out of some form of civic duty, and it's a
Sure.
lot easier to go to 8 home games versus 41. Granted, um, cheaper as well. I would imagine. Um, but yeah, at some point there's going to have to be some form of civic embrace of the franchise if you are truly concerned that they may leave. And I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here. One thing I maintain is that I do still think that Pagula loves the Sabres more than he loves the Bills. Um, he might like he might love that the Bills make him more money for
Oh,
what it's
no
worth.
question.
Yeah, right. But I do think that in his heart of hearts, the Sabres are his baby, the Bills are his ATM. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it might be that kind of a relationship a
That's
little bit.
fair.
And that's not to besmirch what he's done with the Bills. His stewardship of the Bills has been tremendous. Um, and so I think he deserves credit for that. But when you when so but to get back to my point, the cart in front of the horse thing, like I think you'd have to move heaven and earth for Perry Pagula to sell the Sabres. And I do think that at some level the NHL would protect the Sabres too. It's not as sexy of a media market as Phoenix, and they spent a whole lot of time and money to keep the Coyotes there as long as they did. But I do think that they would try and protect them at some level. They did it. They did back in the bankruptcy days when they almost moved to Portland.
Mhm.
So I think at some level there would be some similar amount of protection afforded to them.
Yep.
But to my larger point, I do wonder, like, at some point, does there need to be some sort of a community groundswell, a grassroots support to say, hey, like, yeah, they suck. They can't put a roster together to save their lives, but you're going to lose something you've had for the last 55 years if you don't show up to the rink.
Yeah.
And again, that's hard. Like, the price of those games are not cheap. I get it. But yeah, again, like, I'm being a doomer right now, but like, and I mean, maybe we're
I don't
thinking
think
out.
you're being a doomer.
Yeah. But I just, it's, if it ever reached that point, if it ever got that extreme, that's my take, is like, if you ever get to the point here in the next, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, whatever it ends up being, um, where all of a sudden it's like, yeah, the checkbook is feeling pretty light because of because of the ticket sales. You might have to start thinking from the civic perspective, less so from the fan perspective. Whether or not that ever comes to fruition, I don't know. I think I have a feeling they're going to have their Andy Dalton moment here in some way, where, like, they'll have a power play bender season where they converted 23% by accident, uh, and they managed to sneak in. But um, it's just, yeah, it just feels really bleak now. And like I said, you caught me at a bad time, because, like, I think the Dahlin thing is like 60% bullshit, but like, there's truth to it. There's got to be some truth to it.
I
And
believe so.
he even said in his comments, he's like, we have to be better, we have to improve, like, we have to change. And so, like, I think he was, like I said on my podcast, he's calling his GM out a little bit there, but like, um, it's just one, like, just the hits keep coming, man, and like, for them to just, you come out of the deadline, and once again the league is like, oh, we're gonna take our shot at this pinata because we haven't hit it enough already. Like, it's just like, oh my gosh, like, can you please figure this out so you're not the punching bag?
Yeah. I
It's just so hard.
it,
It's tough.
it is really hard. And look, I don't think it's going to come to that point where the Sabres could potentially be gone. I'm just saying I could see something like that down the road. Obviously, I
Mhm.
hope it doesn't come to that. But, to put a bow on this episode today, I'm at the point where I find myself rooting for this team. They got, what, 18 games left? I hope they lose them all. I really do. And it's not, this is the crazy thing. Look, not proud of it, but I was a pro take guy. Okay. Usually I'm like, if you ain't going to make the playoffs, well, fuck, man, you might as well get the best pick you could possibly get. That's not why, though. That is not why. I don't know these prospects. I'm just a casual fan right now. I don't even know who the top 3 or 4 guys are right now. That's not the point. I don't want them to lose, not because of a better draft pick situation. I want them to lose out as many as possible, because that may be the only thing that gets Kevyn Adams canned. That's
Mhm.
it. And maybe I don't buy Lindy Ruff either. I know Lindy Ruff's been, that the coaches ain't doing him no favors. Some of these players just got to go. There's got to be more turnover. I don't know if Lindy Ruff is the guy either anymore. I don't know what Terry Pegula is going to do. I hope it's something. And I hope they stay in the basement where they are, because even if it's just a 5% chance more that Terry looks at the standings after 82 games and says, God damn, we're last, I got to do something. And then maybe he does. I'm not counting on it. I'm not betting on it. I'm just saying that I hope.
Yeah, no, I'm right
Hopefully.
there with you. I feel the same way. Like, I have zero expectation that they fire Adams, but they should. And yeah, like, if they keep tanking it out, maybe he gets canned. If they just can't get it together, like, maybe he gets fired, and I just hope they draft Michael Misa. That's the two things.
All right, man. That's
Yeah.
going to do it for this episode. Big thank you again, Chris Ostrander, 2 in the box. Follow him on Twitter at 2ITB_Buffalo. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Thank you, everybody who's been watching on the video side live. Almost 500 people on a Thursday night live. Of course, everyone who's going to listen to this sometime on Friday. I appreciate you as well. Thanks a lot, Chris.
No doubt. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, have a good weekend. I'll be back live Sunday night. Joe from Queens. Talk to you then.